Welcome back to the sixth and final session of the JA It's My Future curriculum. Today's activity is called How to Keep or Lose a Job. What you'll notice is that the introduction starts talking about two different terms. One is technical skills and one is soft skills. Technical skills is the actual ability or knowledge that's used in a specific position, and a soft skill are your personal attributes that are coming into a position. I worked at a water park for many summers in management, and my boss would always say, Risa, when you are hiring someone, hire for the soft skills, not for the technical skills. I can train someone to make a hot dog, but I can't train them on how to smile. I can't train them on how to be kind to customers and have good customer service and how to be positive. So that's how I learned the difference between the two. The technical skills are what you're actually doing, but the soft skills are often what gets us in trouble. It's what's actually hindering us from getting promotions. It's actually often the cause of losing a position. One thing the book talks about in these talking points is the importance of practice. A lot of times celebrities and athletes will often attribute their success to practice. And so what we want to consider the students to think about is that we can practice soft skills today as middle school students. We're talking about how all of these skills transfer to our future careers, but really the habit starts now. So for example, if they are habitually late for class, or if they're always late for school, if they're always losing something in their locker, that's going to translate into potentially being late for work, not being able to find, keeping their desk organized, not being able to find files and other things that they need along the way. So we can practice now as middle school students to gain some of those skills that will be beneficial in our futures. To introduce this concept a little bit more, you can use the poster in which you have two employees who had the same technical skills but had very different social soft skills. And so one of the employees actually gained a promotion and the other unfortunately got fired. So we want the students to brainstorm ideas on what would this employee may have done well with soft skills to keep her job, and what would maybe have hindered the other employee from keeping their job and instead getting fired. There's a couple ways that you can do this, one of which the book says is to put the students into small groups and have them brainstorm some ideas on what they may have done well or not have done well, and then you can have them share some of those ideas and try to share ones that haven't already been presented so that you don't have a lot of duplicates. Another idea we received from a volunteer is to put all of the soft skills that you can think of, both positive and negative, and some of them are listed in the guidebook as well, into a hat and actually have a student draw out a characteristic or a skill and have them determine if that skill would have fallen on the keep the job or the getting fired job. So those are both great ways to get the students interacting and thinking about some of those key elements that may help or hinder a potential future. The next thing that we are going to be using is the Keep a Job Tips pamphlet. And so the students are each going to get one of these. The guidebook encourages you to give each student one of these and then to have them read through it and to have them check mark skills that they think they're good at and to circle skills that they think they need more help with. What I have noticed when teaching this is that first of all, it's a lot of information for them to process and it takes a lot of time for them to work through the worksheet, but they were also frustrated because it was sometimes hard to determine what the skill actually was. So looking at this a little bit closer, I would encourage you to hold this as a whole class discussion. What you'll notice is that there's great content on this page. The green headers are actually the skills that we want to focus on, and the bulleted points underneath are the supporting elements that lead to that skill. So what I would encourage you to do is to throw out the skill and to ask them what can they do now as middle school students to gain that skill. So for example, you could say, okay, getting along with others, that's very important in the future workforce. Teamwork is so important. what could you guys do as middle school students to gain the skill of getting along with others? You can allow them to brainstorm. They might come up with things like group work, being on a sporting team, maybe working well or playing with younger siblings. All of these are great ideas on how they can practice today on getting along with others or working with people that are maybe different than you or that are frustrating you, and have them brainstorm some of those immediate ideas that they can do today to actually practice for their future. So to make it real life to today. Again, you can hand these out and they could jot some of those tactile, those specific ideas right here on this sheet, along with some of these bulleted points that are already here. You can highlight and pick and choose. You don't necessarily have to go through all of them. Another great one is ask questions. A lot of times middle school students, they feel embarrassed. They don't want to ask for help. They don't want to admit that they don't know what they're doing. And a lot of times if they would just take the time to ask their teachers questions, they could really be successful. So that's a great one to highlight along with getting along with others. If you don't have time to do all of them, those are two very specific ones to middle school that can be very, very effective. Then you'll notice that the next part of the activity is to challenge the students to think about blogs. Blogs are very prevalent in the technology world today, and middle school students love technology and they want to be doing the in things. So we are going to have the opportunity to challenge them to create a career blog. Now, if you're not familiar with blogs, it's an online system in which people blog. It's an online journal. Sometimes it's, personal reflection, sometimes it's business, sometimes it's recipe based, sometimes it's tip based, sometimes it's just here's what's going on in our family's life. There's lots of different blogs out there, but what the students are going to do is they're going to think about this entire program, all of the time that they've spent together, and they're going to create a career blog that they would want to put out that would encourage maybe friends or family members on elements that would help them to be successful in future careers and how to keep and lose a job. So one of the elements is to have them turn on the back page and to have them consider the different things that you have talked about throughout the program. So these are all listed here. They can jot down some of those key elements and key ideas, that they thought stood out to them. And then that information can then be transferred in an artistic way onto this blog. So they can pretend that this is their computer screen and they can design that. Again, there can be creative elements. It could be listed. It could be bulleted. They might want to include the logo that they made in the original activity. But basically, it's a reflection opportunity for them to think about what are some of those key elements that they've gained and to put it on paper in a creative and artistic way. You can have some of the students share some of their ideas and their highlights and their key points with the whole class at the end, which will be a great way to highlight some of those key elements from the program. Before you leave this activity for the day, there is a small mini graduation, and we would encourage you to take the time to do a graduation ceremony. Take the last 5 to 7 minutes. There are certificates of achievement found at the end of your found in your curriculum guide that you can use at the end of your last session. If you would like to use these certificates, please note that there is a template on our website that will allow you to type the information instead of handwriting them. What we would encourage you to do, whether or not you actually use the certificates at the middle school level, most of them end up as a paper airplane or in the garbage, so don't be offended by that. If you choose to use them, that might be the destination for some of them, but there is a good number of students that will appreciate them along the way. You could even encourage them to use it and to save it into like a portfolio that they could potentially use in their future for scholarships, etc. That would be another example of how to tie something like this into their future of creating a professional portfolio for their futures. But what you want to do, whether or not you use the certificates, you could use a small trinket or a piece of candy, but we would encourage you to ask the students to come up one at a time, call their names, and to actually demonstrate before you do so a good proper handshake, to make sure that you have a good firm handshake, web to web, that you have a good firm handshake, that you don't have, you're not ripping someone's arm off, that you're not a dead limp fish, we say, that you're not a super squeezer, but that you just have a good firm handshake, that you look the person in the eye, that you smile. The presenter often says congratulations. They would respond with thank you. And then to give them that practice. Again, it's a skill that they're going to need in their future. So ultimately someday we want them to be walking down and getting that diploma. But handshakes are so important in the professional world. And so again, this is a great example to be able to connect to say, here's a skill we're going to practice today that's going to be very prevalent in your future. So take a few moments to share with the students what you appreciated about your time with them, the elements and the areas in which you feel that they will be successful in their futures, that they're going to be getting scholarships and awards and just a variety of successes in their future. So just encourage them to think about how they can, even today as middle schoolers, impact their future. Enjoy this session.